As Gavin Newsom continues to wage his shadow campaign for president in 2024, next week he will take the stage for a nationally televised debate on Fox News. We've got the details on that, but we also see that he's firing the first shot in the battle. Coming up, we'll tell you what he's doing and why he's a big hypocrite. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California, and longtime viewers of this podcast know that I am no friend to Gavin Newsom. I think he's one of the worst governors California has ever had, and we've had quite a few bad governors, but he is undeniably the worst governor in the U.S. right now. Oh, but he thinks he's the best, and he's lecturing everyone else how to run their state and how to live their lives. His polling numbers are dropping here in California as people are waking up to the destruction that his policies have caused. But he's still running a shadow campaign for president. We see all the signs of it. He wants to replace Joe Biden. And I actually think that there's actually a whole deal or a whole at least effort or movement underway behind closed doors in the Democrat Party to make him the nominee to swap out Joe Biden. We're not going to get too far into that, but we know that the big test for Newsom is whether he can handle the pressure of a nationally televised debate. And that's going to happen next week, November 30th on Fox News, as Gavin Newsom sits down for a debate with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Now, both of these guys need each other for this. Ron DeSantis' campaign is in a tailspin. Gavin Newsom is running a shadow campaign for governor, so they both desperately need each other for attention. This is a stunt for both of them. Sean Hannity will moderate the debate, but Newsom did not want to have a studio audience because I'm sure that he would have been heckled and booed and jeered. So it will just be the two candidates for president and Sean Hannity. And Sean Hannity says he's going to be fair. I'm sure he will, because he realizes it doesn't look good for him to host a debate if it looks like it's 2 against 1. So I think he'll be fair, but Gavin Newsom will try to gaslight America. And what we're trying to do is expose his bad record, his failures, his corruption by getting our dirt file on him out to the public. We have a website that I want to suggest that you go to. It's exposegavinnewsom.com, and I'm bringing that up right now. We have a story up there about Gavin Newsom's turkey tax for Thanksgiving. We have a separate podcast on that. But here's the website, exposegavinnewsom.com. We have all sorts of information and stories about his failings, his polling numbers that are dropping, 7 reasons why you should worry that he might become president. Check out that website, exposegavinnewsom.com, and chip in a contribution if you can, because all of our work is funded by grassroots supporters. No big dollars, no big backers. We're doing this as a grassroots movement. All of our investigations, all of our media, all of our outreach to voters, all grassroots funded at reformcalifornia.org, or just chip in at exposegavinnewsom.com. So let's talk about the first salvo in this debate. He posted a tweet with a TV ad that apparently he's running in Florida to needle Ron DeSantis. He says, any woman who has an abortion after 6 weeks and any doctor who gives her care will be guilty of a felony. I guess he's referring to Florida having, I believe they have a heartbeat bill, which again, it's if you detect a heartbeat in the fetus, then you would not have an abortion. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But the 6 weeks is dubious. It's a dubious claim. He says abortion after 6 weeks will be punishable by up to 5 years in prison. That's not freedom. That's Ron DeSantis' Florida. Okay. I'm going to play the ad and then I'll talk about abortion. And I don't want this to be an abortion discussion. It really should be about extremism. Whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, I think you're going to like how I address this issue. But here's the ad that Newsom is running.
Wanted. By order of Governor Ron DeSantis. Any woman who has an abortion after 6 weeks and any doctor who gives her care will be guilty of a felony. Abortion after 6 weeks will be punishable by up to 5 years in prison, even though many women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. That's not freedom. It's Ron DeSantis' Florida.
Campaign for Democracy PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Now, of course, he's using a super PAC, dark money PAC, to do this ad. He's clearly running for president, and he just doesn't want to file as a federal candidate and comply with campaign finance rules. So the first thing is, Newsom, who's paying for this ad. No one in the media wants to hold him accountable for his dark money and the fact that he's running around, diverting himself from the campaign finance laws that we have put in place for campaigns so that you have transparency. So that's ding number one. Ding number two, Newsom wants to talk about extremism on abortion. Let me start out by saying that there's a lot more agreement on abortion in this country than the media or the politicians from either party want to acknowledge. Most Americans are very reasonable people on this issue. They don't like abortion. They're not pro-abortion. They're actually anti-abortion. They don't want any girl to have an abortion, any woman to have an abortion, because no one should want someone to have an abortion. An abortion means that someone says this is an unplanned, unwanted pregnancy. They're in a pinch. They're in a bad spot. I don't think anyone would say, "Oh yeah, we'd want that." Most Americans would like to create an environment where we can reduce the number of unwanted and unplanned pregnancies. So that means sex ed, appropriate sex ed. That's common sense. That means access to birth control. Again, Americans support access to birth control. Republicans, conservatives support access to birth control. This is not an extremist position. This is a bipartisan position. And most Americans consider themselves probably anti-abortion, but respectful of choice. And the real debate in this country is how much time do we give? This law would suggest 6 weeks. There are others that say no abortion, period. Now, whether you are with the no abortion period, which would be pretty hard and fast, or 6 weeks, which is pretty limiting, or maybe you're with a heartbeat standard, or when the baby feels pain, which could be 13 weeks, could be 9 weeks, or maybe you're a first trimester. Most Americans fall somewhere on that spectrum. They're okay with allowing abortion up to a point, but at some point, they support restrictions. Gavin Newsom and the Democrats support no restrictions. And that's not a claim, that is a fact. Gavin Newsom backed Proposition 1 in the 2022 election, which eliminated California's limit on an abortion. Right now, or prior to Prop 1 in 2022, California had one of the more permissive abortion periods and statutes for timelines. It was a viability standard of 23 weeks. That you can't have an abortion after 23 weeks, but you could have an abortion prior to 23 weeks. But 23 weeks was the viability standard. And a lot of Americans, a lot of Californians are shocked when they hear that 23 weeks. Yep, in California, we allowed that. Not anymore. In fact, Gavin Newsom is so pro-abortion and so ghoulish on this topic and so extreme on this topic that he eliminated the 23-week common sense restriction. Now, he says abortion on demand. There is no time limit in California on an abortion. It is an abortion on demand state. It is a late-term abortion state. And now we have 5 late-term abortion clinics that have opened in the state of California. Again, I don't want to make this about a debate on abortion because, again, we could be here for hours. I do want to make this about lying and hypocrisy. Here you have Newsom saying that there's no freedom and there's no, and that somehow this is extreme, when in fact, the extremist here is Gavin Newsom with his support for Prop 1, eliminating any restriction or timeline on an abortion. You may not be with the 6 weeks. You may not even be with heartbeat or fetal pain. You may be a 23-week person, somewhere in between. But we can have a discussion and a debate about that. But you can't have a debate or a discussion with someone like Gavin Newsom, who literally is an abortion on demand politician with his support for Prop 1. Here's another thing that this guy is doing, and you want to talk about freedom being under attack, and this is where we get to the good part. But before we get there, please like this video and comment below. That allows us to break through the algorithm that liberal media, liberal tech companies have put on videos. They want to suppress any discussion of abortion, obviously. But please like and share this video because I think it's common sense. Also, subscribe to this channel so that we can update you with our podcasts every day. At 5 o'clock, we post a new show on all sorts of topics in California news and politics. So subscribe to this channel and click that notification button. Now, let me tell you where the freedom boomerang hits Gavin Newsom. He says that he's the freedom state, but this is the same state that passed a law that Newsom supported that would require that the faith-based pregnancy centers would have to tell women about abortions and encourage them to have an abortion. That law was passed. It was then overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court in a 5-4 ruling saying it violates the First Amendment. The court basically said that you can't force faith-based pregnancy centers to speak something that they do not believe in, which is abortion. And you cannot compel a faith-based or religious organization to embrace abortion. That bill was resoundingly criticized when it was passed and signed into law in California as gutting freedom, violating our freedoms on the face of it. And the Supreme Court agreed it violated our freedoms. So you want to talk about the anti-free state, welcome to California. Oh, but it gets worse. When they were hit on that, when they couldn't tell the faith-based pregnancy centers that they had to promote abortion, Newsom decided to go after these crisis pregnancy centers. Here's a June article from 2023, why crisis pregnancy centers will be California's next abortion battleground. Next abortion battleground? They already are. They've been attacked by Democrats and Newsom repeatedly. And it goes on to basically say that pregnancy centers are misleading pregnant people, that they're committing fraud. That was in June. By September, Rob Bonta, Newsom's attorney general, files fraud charges against 5 California crisis pregnancy centers for misleading patients. What were they misleading patients on? He says they were misleading patients because they said, hey, you shouldn't have an abortion. Maybe you should consider taking the baby to term. Hello? These are faith-based pregnancy centers. This is not a surprise. There's no misleading going on. They're not trying to hide the fact that they don't support abortion. Now, again, you don't have to agree with them, but understand that in a free society, faith-based organizations, individuals can say to a woman, hey, you don't have to have an abortion. Here are all the other options that are there for you to bring that baby to term. Again, it's the woman's decision. In California, we are a pro-choice state. It is the woman's decision. But Rob Bonta, Gavin Newsom are so anti-freedom that they want to silence people from even offering a woman an alternative to an abortion. I have said for some time that the extreme on the far left on the issue of abortion, they're not pro-choice. They are actually indeed pro-abortion. In fact, that's why you hear them saying that we should shout our abortions. They say that. There's actually a phrase that says, shout out your abortion, shout your abortion. In other words, talk about how wonderful it is and, promote the fact that you had an abortion. And it's a great choice. I think an abortion should be absolutely the last resort possible after everything else has failed. Again, I don't want to get into an abortion discussion as to, a ban or judge whether or not there should be a right. But how can you say, like Gavin Newsom says, that women shouldn't even be given an option, that they shouldn't even be told that there are alternatives? And just like that 2018 bill that we saw the Supreme Court strike down. This lawsuit is designed to bully and intimidate using criminal sanction, criminal charges, bully and intimidate those pregnancy centers out of business, to silence them, to infringe on their freedom. Again, what does Gavin Newsom say? He's running an ad saying that somehow having any sort of discussion on a limit, whether it's 6 weeks or 9 weeks or 12 weeks or 13 weeks or 23 weeks, any discussion on a limit on when you can have abortion is somehow inherently anti-freedom. And bullying pregnancy centers and having a complete abortion on demand, late-term abortion, is somehow pro-freedom. No. Newsom is the extremist here. But the national media will not explain all this stuff. They'll just simply say, oh, yeah, boy, Ron DeSantis has a very short timeline that he's supporting on abortion. Well, we can have that discussion, but what about the bullying and intimidation and the weaponization of the criminal justice system against faith-based pregnancy centers to silence them or to back a bill forcing them to offer abortion advice and give recommendations for abortion? That's not freedom either. So I urge you, again, we got into the messy subject of abortion. And again, this is a highly emotionally charged issue. And that is an accurate statement. That is a true statement, a common sense statement. But when you look at what's really being said here by Gavin Newsom, there's no common sense, there's no accuracy, and there's certainly no freedom. Join our fight to hold Gavin Newsom accountable. Go to exposegavinnewsom.com. That's exposegavinnewsom.com. Chip in a contribution. Share the stories that are up there. Until next time, Carl DeMaio, Chairman of Reform California. Thanks for watching. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.